Once we got with you, we were taken care of, and it was very doable.
Like Betsy said, I don't think it would have been anywhere close to as smooth of a transition it was had we have been doing this on our own. You've even trained me up on how to do social media.
Like, I never graduated high school thinking I'm going to get into social media and do, like, that wasn't even a thing then.
I think the ability to be present on multiple platforms and have multiple touch points, and the ability to collaborate like on Instagram and Facebook, it's huge because you can get in front of other people's audiences.
I would have never guessed the video would have done better than the audio.
Same thing for me. Like, I've made videos, I'm like, literally 3 people are probably gonna see this, but then it goes off and gets like 10,000 views or whatever. Welcome to the Howdy Podcast. Today's guests are the one and only Christina and Betsy. They are members here at the studio, and so we're going to be talking about some of the things that they've encountered, they've gone through in this whole journey of starting a podcast from nothing. Like, there was no podcast. There was no, I think Christina said she had like 300 Facebook friends. Like, if y'all can do it, think of anybody else that can do it.
Absolutely.
And so, we're just going to talk through their stories, talk about their experience, and go through some of their numbers to show you what only 2 seasons has done for you guys.
Yeah.
And so, to start this thing off, just kind of give us like why y'all wanted to start a podcast in the first place.
Yeah, it's not really something that was on my radar. Like, I never graduated high school thinking I'm going to get into social media and do, like, that wasn't even a thing then because I'm old, you know.
Yeah.
But I laugh all the time. Like 2 or 3 years ago, I thought, man, it would be so fun to have a podcast, because podcasts were super life-giving for me. And I had suckered you into joining in the podcast, thing. So I would send you episodes all the time. And so I didn't really know why it would be fun. I just enjoyed the conversational style of it, and I learned a lot from them.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of set that on the back burner. And then it kind of morphed into more of something that I just felt like was an open door for us to share stories of what the Lord was doing in people's lives. And so that lights my fire. I really want those stories to get out there, because I think that changes people. And so the connections that had grown over the last few years with women around the big country, it just seemed like a natural fit. And then just as we kind of started talking about it, and like I said, I suckered you in again. I'm like, you should be a co-host, right? Because if I'm going to put myself out there like that, like, you're going to put yourself out there with me. And then within a couple of weeks of just tossing that idea around, Darren casually puts this thing on Facebook. Hey, would anybody in Abilene be interested in a podcast studio? And I'm like, well, that would work for us, because we know nothing about social media or podcasting or equipment or anything. And so that's really how we got in with Darren. And we knew him from other areas in our lives. So it was an easy, well, it wasn't an easy call, but it was a call that was worth making.
Absolutely. Because I remember I posted that, and then I think the same day you called me and you're like, hey, this is kind of weird and crazy. But I think I want to start a podcast. And
with my whole 100 followers.
At that point, it was just an idea. Like, I didn't go out and look for a spot. I didn't do anything. And I was doing a Devo that morning, and like, for some reason, the Lord was like, hey, this is a good idea. You need to do this. And I was like, okay. So anyways, I put the post up. I was like, hey, would anybody be interested? And then I get the call, and I was like, okay. If that wasn't like a slap in the face of being like, hey, like, this is, even if it's just this one show, like, the people that we've reached through it, like, that would be worth it just by itself.
I was scrolling through Facebook, and I see your post, and like, my heart started pounding. I'm like, oh my gosh, Betsy, like, if this isn't the Lord, I don't know what is. Like, how random is it that Darren starts a podcast? Like,
and I act like I casually just called you, but it was because Luke had called me, my husband, and said, Darren's starting a studio. That's interesting, because we just talked about doing a podcast. And then Christina calls me and says the same thing. I'm like, I know, shut up. I don't want to make the call, because it's going to put me out there. And I think that was something that probably hindered me getting everything rolling, was just that the fear of like, gosh, this is going to be out there. And this is really vulnerable. But after talking to you, this was the cool part. After talking to you, it just felt really like all the guesswork was gone and I was at peace. I trusted you. And that meant a whole lot to be able to just trust you that I wasn't going to put myself out there in a way that was horrible, or like you taught me and led me along the way and made us better at what we do.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And, you know, this is we're starting season 3. And I think each season we've gotten better and better.
Yeah.
And I feel way more natural than I did the first time.
Yeah.
And a
The
lot of
first
that is
time
just
was
through
really
your
awkward.
leadership.
Yeah.
So we've done 2 whole seasons so far. Each season was 12 episodes, correct?
Yep.
And so that took about 6 months of recording, releasing 1 a week. There was a couple periods where we took like 1 or 2 months off, which is fine. Like that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Take a break, get people lined up for the next season, that kind of thing. But I have the stats pulled up. So what we do, we post on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, as well as YouTube. So like there's just the audio side and then there's a video side. And so I have both of the stats pulled up. The audio only platforms to this date, y'all have had 10,343 downloads.
Wow.
So cool.
And that's with 24 plus about 28 episodes out currently to this date.
So tell us, I need to know this because I honestly get confused still, but I can listen to a podcast episode just casually, but what's the difference in downloading it and like, tell
Just
us about
listening
that.
to it.
So this considered, like anytime somebody clicks on your podcast to listen to it, it considers it a download.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So
It doesn't mean
listens.
necessarily downloading it to your phone.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. See, that's
It
good
just
to know.
means they played it and listened to it.
Yeah. So
Okay.
like views on YouTube is pretty much the equivalent to the downloads on
Okay.
Spotify and Apple.
Okay. Cool.
But 10,343 total downloads. As of right now, you're averaging 325 downloads per episode and about 315 weekly downloads total for Spotify and Apple. Last 30 days, 1,435 downloads.
In the last 30 days.
And we haven't
And
even,
we-
those have been bonus episodes. Those
Yeah.
haven't even
Yeah.
been like our typical.
That hasn't been the start of season 3 yet.
And we haven't even pushed those on social media at all.
So all
Interesting.
of that is coming from the previous episodes. So like if somebody discovers one of y'all's episodes and like, oh, this is really good, most of the time they'll go back to the beginning and like
and
just
start over.
listen to all of them. And so like exactly the same way people binge Netflix
Mhm.
shows,
Yeah.
they're binging your podcast,
Oh,
That's cool.
that
which is kind of
cool.
fun. So like right now y'all are spending hours with people around honestly the world and you don't even have to physically be there.
Mhm.
Right.
Which is another reason I love like pushing social media like YouTube, Spotify, because you can in a way multiply yourself and your stories to reach more people than like you would in a normal room or
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Anyway, so another example of that is my personal Instagram page, and this was a cool thing that I thought about. I have almost 500,000 people reached this month on my Instagram,
What?
Wow.
and that's so the last 30 days. And I think it's really cool to think about the town that we live in was only has 150,000 people in it.
Yeah.
And so like if we were to put in every ad in every newspaper, all the billboards,
You
all the
still
local
wouldn't
ads,
reach.
I still would never reach that many people.
Yeah.
And so pushing this stuff online is like,
Well, let me say this too, because I think had we started, which I had no idea what to do, so it would have been a lot rockier, equipment wise even. But had we not started with you guys and become members of the studio, I don't think we would have had I don't think we would have as many views as we have right now. I don't think we would have people even aware that we had a podcast. Like I think we would have still been pretty disconnected from the world just because we weren't out to make this a social media thing. We are still not. Like it's not that we want to build this social media platform. Like we just have these cool stories we want to share and put out in the world. And it's naturally building itself
Yeah.
because we're connected to you more so than if we had just done it on our own.
yeah. So if you're listening to this, and if this is the first time you're hearing about what we do, so we have this studio here in downtown Abilene, and what we do is we'll film it for our members, film a podcast just like this, we'll put it onto YouTube, we'll put it onto Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all the things. So we'll distribute it for you, and that's what we've been doing for Betsy and Christina. And the numbers have been crazy from starting from zero.
Were we your first podcast? Like
Y'all were the
full on conversational style podcast?
Yeah. Y'all were the first members to sign up.
Yeah.
Now we currently run 4. We have 4 full-time members.
That's
awesome.
cool.
And so that's a lot of podcasts per week.
Well, I will
Yeah.
say too, it's super cool because when I go on and schedule our people, our guest, your availability has changed because you're busier, and I love watching your business grow. It's not hard at
Yeah.
all. Like I can always call and we always make it
Mhm.
work. It's not a big deal, but it's so simple. But you can see the growth on your end too,
Mhm.
and it's been fun to watch that.
I'm getting busier, which is good, but it's also annoying sometimes.
Yeah, there's growing pains.
And so, like, for example, in June, whenever the baby comes,
Yeah,
I've already warned Naomi and Mike, like, hey, y'all are going to have to step up and kind of take a
Take
little bit more
over.
responsibility because I'm not going to be able to be here as much as I am now.
Yeah.
And so it lines up perfect because Mike, he's graduating in May.
oh, that's great.
So he'll be able to be here full time.
Yep.
And we can at least have somebody available majority of the time.
Well, it's never been hard to
Yeah.
navigate, and so
So
even love
that
your
might be
online
changing
platform.
though
no,
in
it's
the
all
near
good.
future.
Yeah.
But so yeah, that's cool. Y'all have more views on well, actually wait, let me see. Views, lifetime. Well, actually you have more views on YouTube than you do the audio.
Which is funny because initially I thought I don't need a video element
Yeah.
because I don't want a video element because I don't love being on the camera.
Mhm.
But I think it has a lot of benefits, and you led us that way. You said, "Listen, I think this is the way we do this," and so we submitted to that. And
Yeah.
honestly, I'm glad because from what we get you recording, you editing, you producing, you posting, and then you also send us content
Yes.
from the episodes we've recorded that we don't have to even think about, we don't have to touch, and that is so nice. So you just send them over to us, and they're, I don't even remember how many reels do we get?
I
3.
think like
3
2
an
or 3
episode.
reels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From every episode that
Yeah.
we can kind of use to boost the episode throughout the week.
Yeah.
And so that has been so beneficial.
Yeah, I encourage everybody, if you're wanting to start a podcast, just listening to this, like just go ahead and then do the video and audio because you're basically knocking out 2 birds with 1 stone.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to sit down for 30 minutes, an hour, whatever it is, and do a podcast, you might as well have both. If you just do audio, it's a little bit harder to promote it. So like you won't have anything to show people what you're
Yeah.
doing on social media. So like that's, we were talking about the clips. So like we'll take clips and highlights from the conversations that they have and we'll send it over to you guys and y'all post it on your personal social media platforms like Instagram and Facebook. And so I think the ability to be present on multiple platforms and have multiple touch points and the ability to collaborate like on Instagram and Facebook, it's huge because you can get in front of other people's audiences. And pretty soon, I'm going to talk to you guys.
Settle down.
No.
Here we go.
Well, it's going to be now that y'all are getting really good at doing the podcast thing. Now we're going to have to get you guys in front of more people. So like other audiences. If somebody else has a podcast like that has a viewership already, that's going to be one of our next goals, is to get you guys onto their shows. Don't bring them here because they have more viewership than you do and you want to be on their channel.
Yeah.
Because most of the time whenever people listen to, like, what's one of y'all's favorite podcasts that y'all listen to?
That Sounds Fun with Annie F. Downs. What else?
I listened to the Chip Ingram. It's
So
good.
What's the one Maury told us about today that was, I want to add to our list? The Boo Crew, the Boo.
Oh, yeah.
Something.
how
Anyways.
many
Big
viewers do you
Boos?
think they have?
The big.
Oh,
something.
these are bigger. I would say these are bigger.
They're from San
podcasts.
Antonio, so
Yeah.
they're
Okay.
probably pretty big.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
even Annie F. Downs, she's in Nashville, and like it's big. She's been doing it for 10 years before
Yeah.
podcasts were really even a
Yeah,
thing.
but people are always looking for guests.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you can even get on one of those shows, like just, I mean, DMs are your best friends, honestly. Getting you in front
Such
of
a stretch.
getting you in front of people.
Yeah.
And saying like, hey, this is like, send them your stuff. Say, hey, this is what we're about. We love your podcast. If there's any opportunities or availability, like, let us know. And then all of a sudden, if
I didn't know
somebody,
we were having this conversation today.
hey,
you know?
anything could happen on the Howdy podcast.
Yeah.
But I mean, if somebody has 500,000 subscribers and they get even 300,000 or 400,000 views a podcast, that's a pretty big podcast.
Yeah.
But like, that could completely transform
Yeah.
this right now. So like, you could see these numbers jump to like in the millions eventually.
It would be
And if you
crazy.
keep going, I think you really can, because these stories are really.
These stories do the
impactful.
work themselves. Yeah.
And so, with that being said, let's talk about the YouTube views. So YouTube, to this date, you have 13,414 views.
I would have never
Wow.
guessed the video would have done better than the audio.
How many of you know podcasts are great and game-changing for building personal brands, but there is so much beyond just podcasting that can help build your brand and your business to create leads and income for you. Anything from long-form content, short-form content, newsletters, emails, blogs, all of these things combined create a personal brand that makes it easy for people to buy from you. And so we've figured out a bunch of systems, and if you're watching this and you're a business owner wanting to start building your brand, then this is your chance to skip the headache, skip to the front of the line, and allow us to guide you along the way. If that interests you at all, there's going to be a link in the description, and we can set up a one-on-one meeting with me and you, and let's talk about it. Let's get back to the video.
Because I'm an audio girl, like on my
Yeah.
podcast listening, I just listen to the audio.
And so
But
that's
interesting.
yeah,
Me
that's-
too. But I do
that's-
know several that watch, like a TV show. They
exactly.
put us on their TV and they watch us. That's weird.
Exactly.
Bless them.
It's getting like, people are watching YouTube more than Netflix sometimes, and it's getting more and more like that because YouTube just has infinite amount of content that is
Yeah.
tailored exactly to what you like to watch. And so people are putting it on their smart TVs. Ever since smart TVs has started becoming a thing,
Yeah.
that's what caused video podcasts to go like significantly
Skyrocket.
up.
Hmm.
And so I think that's honestly one of the reasons YouTube is doing better than Spotify. Because like, whenever you think podcast, traditionally, it's all audio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what everybody who comes in, they're like, oh, there's video too?
Yeah.
Plus YouTube, there's more opportunities to get paid more to help support what you're doing. Whenever it comes to ads, I think y'all have probably reached the 4,000 hours of watch time already that is required. The next thing we have to do to get you monetized is hit 1,000 subscribers.
Wow.
And so as soon as we do that,
So everybody go subscribe.
go subscribe if you're
Yes.
listening to this.
Yes.
Wildly Seen, Totally Loved. I'll link it in the description.
Yeah.
But I think you're about to hit 200 subscribers. It's a lot harder to get subscribers on YouTube than it is any other platform.
I agree.
Mm.
I totally agree.
And so that first 1,000 is going to take the longest and that's for everybody.
Yeah.
Um,
That's just not something I do, is go subscribe. You know,
Exactly.
and now that
Yeah.
being on this end of it and learning the importance of it, it really matters. And so
yeah. It at least matters up until the 1,000 subscribers. After you hit the monetization, is what it's called, then it doesn't really matter, because like, you can get a ton of views, and if nobody subscribes, you're still going to get paid from those views.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
once
But-
you get to that 1,000.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just getting the initial 1,000 that's the hardest, and the watch time. So let's look at watch time. How long? If you had to guess how many hours people have spent watching your YouTube channel, what would it be?
I wouldn't
Under
even know where to
1,000
start.
for sure
Okay.
in my
Is
head.
that your final guess?
Yeah. I don't know, but see, I don't
was gonna say,
study
I wouldn't even know
anything
where
like
to
this, so I don't
start.
even know where to start.
Okay, so
And this is from the beginning, right?
from the beginning.
This is why we have you, Darren.
From the beginning, people have spent 2,846 hours watching your podcast on YouTube.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think that's a really cool stat, because 2,846 hours divided by 24 they've spent 118 days watching the conversations.
That's so
Wow.
cool.
Cumulative,
And
yeah.
and we've been with you guys for coming up on a year.
Almost a year.
Like
Yeah.
we're almost a year.
And so
That's really neat.
That is.
120 days worth of people listening that's a lot of hours.
And there's only 24
Yeah.
out there right now.
Yeah, and we started summer of last year. We had recorded, but we didn't air until the summer. So we had summer and then fall, and then we took breaks in between and took a break for Christmas
Yeah.
to now. So that's not even like
A full
a full year. It's more like 6 months.
Yeah, so
That's
half
really
a year
cool.
of recording and putting out, and yeah, almost 3,000 hours. So we're getting close to that 4,000 hour watch time.
Cool.
I really think in the next season or two, you will hit. Well, this next season for sure, you'll hit 4,000. But yeah, it's cool. Y'all's most viewed episode is Cole and Marley's. Obviously,
Don't tell him.
that one alone. That one alone has 8,500 views,
Wow.
1,800 hours of watch time. So that was a big majority because
Yeah.
it took off.
Yeah.
You gained 67 subscribers from that. Within the last 48 hours, there's been 60 people watch it.
Wow.
So, like,
and
there's-
we did that in October or something. I mean,
Yeah.
it was a long time ago.
So, like,
right?
every single day, at least 30 to 40 people are
Are
watching it
watching it.
I love that.
since the date of release. In the last 60 minutes, there's been 2 views. While y'all have been sitting here, 2 people watched that episode.
Interesting.
That's crazy.
So those are cool stats that we like to pull up every now and then. Y'all have had the most success out of all of our members up to this point, just because y'all have been doing it the most, and the stories are super impactful.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's cool to look at all this stuff. Do you guys have any questions or like thoughts up to this point? Like, did you have any doubts going into it?
I mean, it was mostly self-doubt,
Mhm.
like just putting yourself out there. So maybe you could encourage people in that, because I think that's the hardest part, is just taking the step. Once we
Yeah.
got with you, we were taken care of, and it was very doable.
Like
Yeah.
Betsy said, I don't think it would have been anywhere close to as smooth of a transition it was had we have been doing this on our own.
Mhm.
Like, there's no way. Like, you've even trained me up on how to do social media,
Mhm.
right? Even though I don't really always listen to you.
Oh yeah, let's talk
Yeah,
about
let's do
y'all's
talk about that.
Facebook or y'all's online presence on
Yeah.
your personal pages.
Yeah.
So
As-
go ahead.
I was gonna say, as far as like followers
Yeah,
and stuff.
yeah, following whatever.
Yeah, like before we started the podcast, I had like 400. Now I have almost 1,000
on Facebook.
on Facebook.
Okay.
Instagram I had just started out with anyway, so it's still like less than 500.
Well,
but
I feel like a lot of y'all's target audience too is majority on Facebook.
Yeah.
yeah,
And
Which
yeah,
I
because we're
almost
old.
don't love. I know. I wish I could transition over to
To-
Instagram, but then
yeah.
you've kind of taught me this too. Like, it's okay to just be where you're at, and
Mhm.
like I don't have to force anything. And I've never felt like I've got to get out there and make this thing happen. Like, it's just, like I said, it's naturally built itself because
Yeah,
of, just
Yeah.
because of the Lord,
the process,
and
the Lord, the stories.
and
It's
it's
not that
training.
it's not that we're trying to put ourselves out there. And I think that's hard too, because I think, people are like, oh, I don't want to put myself out there like that. But it's less about us and more about, hey, these stories are here
Yeah,
and testimonies are
Yeah.
huge. And so we just let the Lord do that part,
Yeah.
and it's kind of built itself.
Yeah.
But then just having your guidance along the way has made it easy.
Yeah. So you've over doubled
hmm
on Facebook.
yeah, on Facebook.
What about you?
So I had about probably 500 on Facebook initially. I have 2,001 now. Mhm.
So
Um,
you have quadrupled.
Yes.
Yeah,
And then on Instagram, I had,
Golly.
Yeah. I probably had like closer to 3 to 5 followers. And
3
now
to 5 followers or
3 to
100.
500.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I was
No,
like,
bless
dang.
it. Hopefully
It's just
I'm
Luke.
not yeah. Christina and Luke, So now I have 1,047.
Dang.
So,
wow, that's impressive.
but I haven't done anything to do that other than post podcast
Reels
content
and, yeah,
and
Man.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was that much. That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's good. So
Well, it's just going to keep getting bigger the more you put out. So
we kind of have just been open-handed with it, like
Yeah.
whatever. And so this is cool too, because I think like we started out with a goal and an idea and we put it out there and you've grown us, but also at the same time, it's like just hearing this is our next goal.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
probably wouldn't have the vision for that. So I'm thankful for the vision that you bring
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
the podcast side of it, where it's like, I can do this conversation part all day long, but having the business mind and the social media
Yes.
mind has been super,
Yeah.
super good.
So speaking of the business part of it, a lot of people look at something like this and they're like, I don't know how I would be able to afford it.
Mm.
Like it's a costly service. How have y'all been able to manage that side of things?
So I'll let Christina talk about.
And you can be
funding.
completely honest.
Oh yeah.
Like,
So we've had sponsorships, like we made a sponsorship packet, we put those out there. We haven't done that in a while, and I thought we may need to throw that back out there again. And we had quite a few sponsors through our second season, and then
and that's just local businesses, people.
Yep, local business people that listen, and
Okay.
that we didn't. Some of them we didn't even realize they were listening in, and they were, and so that was really cool to see that. And then we fundraise as far as like we do charcuterie boards and boxes and little lunches, and so we'll fundraise in that way. We've got the t-shirts
Okay.
that we have.
So merch.
Merch
How has
that
that
we've
been
been
going?
selling.
Do people?
I think the merch is probably the least. It brings in the least amount of money, but it promotes
Yeah.
better than you realize.
Yeah.
And so like we have Wildly Seen Totally Love shirts all over the big country. Like
I've seen them in the wild.
yeah,
like
that's
Yeah.
so cool.
at the mall
Yeah.
and like just random places.
I
Yeah.
walked into G3 the other day, and I had a Wildly Seen Totally Love shirt on, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, I love that shirt!" Like she loved the saying, and
Mhm.
she saw it, and she's like, "I love that. That's so cool." So then I was able to be like, "Well, it's a podcast." So.
Yeah. A t-shirt is like a walking promotion. So and really they're not that cost effective, but at the same time, it's just putting that out there in the world is a big deal. So
Yeah. Have y'all ever worn them on the show?
no, and that's a good idea.
Yeah, it
We
is a
need to
good
do
idea.
I would say you don't have to do it every time.
Yeah.
But like they're gonna be sitting here watching you for an hour wearing that shirt.
Mhm.
A lot of times people are like, man, that's a
I
cool
like
shirt.
that shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we can put a link down there where they can go buy it.
Nope, that's a good
Or-
idea.
RSVP or pre-order. Do y'all do pre-orders or do y'all keep inventory?
I have a little bit of
Yeah.
inventory right now, but we did a pre-order early on and that was awesome.
Yeah.
That was the easiest route. And the sweatshirts have been better than the t-shirts. I
Okay,
think people like a sweatshirt.
Yeah.
So
good. Mm-hmm.
And we've also talked about donations. We don't push it,
Mm-hmm.
but we've had several really cool friends and women who have like been like, "I love this and we want to donate to it." And so we've had some donations come in also.
but I think that speaks to when you put things out there that impact people, and not that we're doing that part, but just that we were obedient to keep
Yeah.
walking it out when it was
Mhm.
uncomfortable. When it's good and when it's serving people well, people want to invest in it.
Yeah.
And it was hard to ask at first for money or just
Mm.
put that out there that we took donations. But it was beneficial and people feel led to give and they do. And we're thankful. And
yeah,
so
it's honestly less of like asking and it's
Yeah.
more of giving an opportunity
Mhm.
for
Yeah.
literally the same thing as like tithing at church. It's like in Anson, and I'm sure y'all do it the same, but it's like if you take up an offering, it's like, hey, this is an opportunity for you to give it back to the Lord.
Yep.
Not to give us money,
Yep.
but to like invest into the kingdom and what
Yeah.
he's doing.
Mhm.
And so I think it's the same exact principle there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do y'all currently take donations? Is it just like through Venmo and stuff?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, we're kind of working on that end. We might
Yeah.
need to have a conversation about that.
And
just
don't we have a
financially.
donation link on our YouTube?
So there's a donation link on the Spotify and Apple podcasts. And y'all have had, I think, a decent
Mhm.
sized donation
Yeah.
that I still need to pay out to you.
That's good. That's good. If it's with you, I trust you. It's all good.
It's literally just sitting there.
Yeah.
We may talk about doing some sort of. Have you ever heard of Patreon?
Yes.
We may start thinking about doing something like that. It basically turns like anybody who wants to support it gives you a consistent way to bring in consistent income. It's like
Mm. And they
$5 a month to join your Patreon or whatever
Yeah.
it is.
And they get a benefit from being a
They-
Patreon member.
Exactly.
Like they get an extra episode or right
So you can do like a exclusive episode once per month
Yeah.
Oh,
just for
okay.
them.
just for the Patreon members.
Yeah.
or
And
something.
they're helping fund the process.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that might be something we can
Yeah.
talk about.
Yeah.
That's what a lot of creators do to help
Mhm.
fund. So like if say I was a full-time YouTuber just making content, making money off of my videos, all the viewers, I would be able to send them to the Patreon and be like, "Hey, sign up for the Patreon.
Yeah.
I'll make exclusive content. You'll get access to my exclusive merch, whatever it is."
Yeah.
It's just a way to help fund everything
Yeah.
consistently. And so, and you can price it at whatever you want, include whatever you want in the packages.
Yeah.
Like you could host like a members meetup like once a quarter, once a
Yeah.
month or whatever.
That's cool.
And it's like you only know when and where if you're a Patreon.
Yeah.
Ah.
That's
Come
cool.
and hang out.
We'd
We
have like
laugh
a
all
little
the
coffee
time.
date.
Yes, that would be fun.
That would be fun.
We laugh all the time about we're like, well, we'll mention it on the podcast and 5 of our listeners will
It feels like that.
It does, but
does.
it's funny to hear these stats because in my
Yeah.
head it's still there's only 5 people that listen to
Well,
this thing.
we're just
but-
sitting in this room.
Yeah.
And like same thing for me. Like I've made videos and like literally 3 people are probably gonna
Yeah.
see this. But then it goes off and gets like 10,000 views or whatever. And it hasn't happened very many times on YouTube, but whenever it does, I'm like, oh, I should have did something different to like capitalize. But yeah. I love looking at the stats and I hope that
Yeah.
Oh, it's been really encouraging.
It's really cool also when you show us the map of like where it's being
Mhm.
listened
Yeah.
to at. That's
let's
always
look at that real quick.
Let's
so
do.
cool.
That is fun.
So we use a program if you're interested in like where to distribute through. We use a program called Red Circle, and this is where we do all of our shows through. Let's see. Geolocation performance. The most downloads you have is in the United States.
Mhm.
You have downloads in the UK, Canada, Australia, Netherlands, and Russia.
we're in Russia.
I know. It's wild. It's wild.
You've had
It's
one in
so
Russia.
wild. Interesting.
I actually have a Ukrainian friend.
Oh
Yeah, I really do. That's what I think is so cool about podcasting too. Is like you're connected to more people than you realize.
Yeah.
Like I've got people that I know that have been to New Zealand for 3 years and they're connected to people in New Zealand. And when they follow and show a video, it could go there. Like
Yeah.
it's just,
That's
you would
it.
never think it, I don't know, until you, I don't know, experience it
Yeah.
and go, oh, wow, this is really a small world that
Yeah.
we live in. So
On YouTube, it's primarily United States, Canada, and Germany.
Germany.
Yeah.
Okay.
Those are it's so weird to think about, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's how big the internet is.
Wow.
that's cool.
Crazy. Well, that's pretty much all I had for this episode. I just
Cool.
wanted to talk about you guys and your success story. Honestly, at this point, a success story, and it's going to keep growing. And I'm super glad that you guys are letting us be a part of it. It's been cool to hear all the stories and all the testimonies. So again, go check them out. They're in the description. Wildly Seen, Totally Loved, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Anything else y'all want to add?
Yeah, I would say if you're on the fence about doing something like this, get with Darren.
Yeah.
It is worth your time and money. It is worth the resources. It has taken all the guesswork out of it for us. And so
Yeah, and
we
that
would not do
includes-
this without him.
Even if you're not located here, like we can still help you if you're remote. And so we've built out studios for people. We can manage and edit and do all the things remotely too. So you don't have to be here in Abilene, Texas to do it. But yeah, thanks for coming on the show today, guys. The Howdy
Thanks for
Podcast.
having us. So
this
good.
was fun.
It's fun. I guess we'll see you guys in the next episode. Thanks.